Welcome back to Talking Dragon Age, the show where I talk about Dragon Age. Now, this episode is a little different than most others. I want to start talking about the next installment of the series, and so this is kind of the first step in that direction. I'm currently working on videos for the Titans and for the Blight, but those are going to take a while, so in the meantime, I thought it would be good to get started on this. Okay, where do I start? Well, I mentioned in another video that I want to see Felassan return. If you don't know, Felassan was an agent of Solas who was tasked with obtaining access to the Illuvian network. In the end, he betrayed Solas by granting them to Brialla and refusing to hear the passphrase. He did this because he thought she deserved a chance to use them to help her people. This is why I think he would make a fantastic companion, that in addition to his great personality. The thing is, Solas killed him at the end of the book. However, Felassan was a dreamer, and Solas killed him whilst in the Fade, meaning that it is entirely possible that Felassan was only made tranquil rather than killed. We know tranquility can be reversed, and although it comes with horrible consequences for the mage, Cassandra said she'd work on a way to solve that. Maybe it'll even be a choice that the protagonist will need to make. Nevertheless, I've long wanted a tranquil companion. I think their perspective on things would be very, very interesting. So I want to see Felassan, and I want to see a tranquil. So whether they're two separate characters or one and the same, that's what I'm really hoping for. I'll also add that I'd like him to be romanceable. I think that would be really, really, really interesting given the whole thing going down with Solas. Now, I have a lot of things to say about romances, and so that will probably get its own video soon. So I'm not going to talk much about it now, aside from whether or not I think they should be romanceable. Moving on, another companion I'd love to see is Scout Lace Harding. She is adorable and vicious. Need I say more? Well, I'm going to anyway. Now, I'm not sure there's anything I can say that hasn't already been said by other fans, but here are my thoughts. At the end of Trespasser, the Inquisitor says that the only way to outsmart Solas is to find people he doesn't know. So I can totally see the start of the next game being Scout Harding just bumping into the new protagonist and recruiting their help. Because, let's be honest, pretty much every hero so far has just stumbled into it.
Is it fate or chance? I can never decide.
And, of course, she should be romanceable. But speaking of dwarven archers, I want to mention Bianca. What little we got in Inquisition was great. I loved her sense of humor, and her commitment and personality makes me want to see more of her. A lot more. Although, I can't imagine Bioware putting two archers in the same game, let alone two dwarven archers, and if I had to choose just one, it would be Scout Harding. But then I thought that maybe she could be some kind of consultant for the protagonist, sort of like Dagna, except with more character development. I don't know, I just wanted to bring her up. Of course, there is another dwarven rogue I need to mention, the perky little Grey Warden and dead legionnaire Sigrun. We saw a good bit of her in Awakening, and I'd like to see her again. I mean, I want to see at least a little of all our former companions again. But Sigrun is one that I especially want to return and join our hero. Anyway, there is one more dwarf on this list. And unlike the others, it's not a character we've really seen before. Basically, I want a male dwarf warrior. Wren is a great example of what I'm looking for. An experienced soldier kicking ass and taking names, and honestly, I'd really like it if he were a Grey Warden. I don't know what it is, but just something about a Grey Warden companion really appeals to me. While I did like the Blackwall story, I just have this weird desire for a proper Grey Warden companion. But maybe Sigrun can fill that role, or some other character. I don't know. I just want a male dwarf. Now, on the subject of warriors, the next companion I would want to see would be a Dalish warrior. Preferably from a clan that are not complete douche-tinglers. I mean, I've always liked the Dalish, but man, some of those clans do not make it easy. I know that's the whole point, and I actually really respect that from a writer's standpoint, but this is just about what I want to see in a companion. In fact, there is one character in particular I want to see return. Arianne from Witch Hunt. Like Bianca, I want to see a lot more of her. Just something about the fact that she was friendly while still mission-focused, and her curiosity of the world especially definitely makes her seem like the ideal character to have along while wandering Thedas. Although I honestly think I'd prefer a male Dalish warrior. I think it's because of the 3 Dalish companions we've had, all have been female. Still, Arianne's personality almost perfectly embodies what I want to see in a Dalish companion, which I think will be extremely interesting to see in the fight against Solas. I imagine we'd meet her venturing up to Tevinter because she's on some sort of mission. Maybe we'll even see Finn along the way, because according to the world of Thedas, she continued to travel with him despite that making no sense at all. I mean, seriously, I guess they got along pretty well, but they weren't exactly the best of friends. Besides, Arianne was on a mission for her clan to reclaim a book, while Finn said several times that he preferred to stay in the circle. So, the fuck, guys? It makes no sense. Alright, that's enough. Moving on, yet another companion I want to see return is Fenris. Now, hear me out. We're going to Tevinter, right? What better time for Fenris to return? I assume we'd meet him while he's hunting slavers or something. I don't know. But just having him along could allow for some tremendously interesting dialogue and development. Now, I didn't like Fenris's attitude at first, but after a while I grew to understand him and even relate to him in some ways. I won't pretend I know what it's like to be a slave, but I can relate to the resentment he feels towards magic. I still disagree with him, because he acts like magic itself is the problem rather than the guy using it, but it's hard for him to overlook that.
It's just difficult to overlook the stain that magic has left on my life. If I seem bitter, it's not without cause.
So here's what I think. If Fenris was a friend and you sided with the mages, then he'll start trying to get past his resentment and be more forgiving and compassionate. I mean, Cullen did it, right? Likewise, if Fenris was a rival and you sided with the mages, then I guess he'd still be set in his ways. And if he was your rival and you sided with the Templars, then yada yada yada, you get the idea. So I think it all comes down to his relationship with Hawke. Also, if he wasn't recruited at all, then I don't know. The main point for wanting to see Fenris return is the whole escaped slave thing. So it doesn't have to be Fenris per se, it could be a completely new character. But there is another reason for Fenris. His markings. I have a growing suspicion that the ritual that wove Lyrium into his skin is going to relate either to the ancient elves or the titans, or maybe even both. I don't want to get into that just yet because there are still other companions I need to talk about, but I'm just putting it out there in case any of you guys want to look into it too. Moving on, we're not quite done with returning companions. More than anyone else, I sincerely want these guys. Well, just her, really. I'm not a fan of Carver. It's probably just me, but I just don't feel the same connection with him that I do with Bethany. I mean, I never envisioned Hawke as a mage anyway. The whole struggle in Dragon Age 2 feels more organic if Bethany is the reason Hawke tries so hard. Anyway, depending on Hawke's class, I'd love to see one of their siblings return, and they should definitely be romanceable. I mean, Bethany is just so cute and pretty and kind and strong and Carver, I guess he's got like a burly thing going on. I don't know. He's better than Caden, I'll say that. Well, here's how I imagine them returning. I'm thinking that whether they join the Wardens or not, they eventually get conscripted anyway. Like, after the events of Kirkwall, the Wardens find Carver as a Templar or Bethany as a Circle Mage and recruit them. Now, Bethany does not like being a Warden, but I guess this would save the writers some trouble, even though I'd prefer Bethany to be happy. And if they died, then I guess they're dead and they can't come back. Ooh, wait. So up next we have another returning companion. Yay! Last one, I promise. Though she is sort of a Dragon Age 2 companion, so we're almost definitely not going to get all of these in a single playthrough. It's Talus. I actually liked her a lot, aside from the, whole crazy Qunari bits. But I like the idea of her struggling to find her place in the Qun. For that alone, I'd like to see her in the next game. Then add her moral principles and stuff, and we have an excellent recipe for a companion. I mean, in Mark of the Assassin, she says the Qunari didn't think intervention with Salit was worth it, but she couldn't just stand back and let it happen. So maybe by being in Tevinter and helping the next protagonist, she deals with similar themes. I think I'd like to see her struggling with herself as part of her story, and that could be impacted on whether or not Hawke helped her. Now, I know she had a little tidbit in Trespasser, but honestly, I couldn't tell exactly what was going on, so I don't really have much to say about it. Speaking of Qunari, I'd also like to see a proper Talvasheth. The Iron Bull was great, but he's not exactly what I mean. I mean someone who leaves the Qun and then joins the protagonist. And then there's a whole story as to why and how they left the Qun. I'm thinking a romanceable female rogue would be cool. I doubt we'd get her and Talus in the same game, but then again, that could make for some really fascinating party banter. I don't know, I guess it's mainly a thing of seeing conflict in Tevinter. And while I don't know for sure, I can totally see us going to Saharan or even Parvalan while we're up there. And you can probably tell, but a lot of these companions I'm choosing largely on their potential commentary. So speaking of which, the Qunari aren't the only ones who have constant trouble with Tevinter. And since we're severely lacking mages on this list, how about a Mortalitasi of Navarra? That's another country I could see us visiting in the next game, and I'd love to find more about it and the Mortalitasi and just the culture there in general. And dragons. Lots and lots of dragons. In fact, we know dragons are very special in regards to the Blight, ancient elves, and so on. So between exploring Tevinter and Navarra, think of the revelations that await. Okay, now I have to restrain myself here. This episode is about companions. So speaking of mages, I had another idea for a Tevinter circle mage. Dorian describes imperial circles as prestigious academies. So imagine this. A scholar in the circle who is an expert on the history of the Imperium. Think how far back that goes. Think of all the amazing things he or she could have to say. With Dorian back in Tevinter, I assume he's tried to spread the word about what happened with the Elves. So just imagine what a historian of the Imperial Circle would have to say about it. I'm getting all giddy just thinking about it. Okay. One more mage I actually just came up with while making this video would be a Ravaini Seer. We've seen and heard so little of Ravain, but we know their seers are an incredibly important aspect of their culture, and what we do know about their philosophy and religion could add a whole bunch of depth to the story with Solas. As for her personality, it's kind of up in the air. I mean, Ravain itself has been on bad terms with both the Chantry and the Qunari, so it could be interesting to see how that impacts her character. Ravaini Seers also have a good relationship with spirits, so I'd expect her to be friendly and knowledgeable as far as that goes. They apparently allow themselves to be possessed by benevolent spirits the way the Adaar do, but I'm honestly hoping she isn't an abomination, at least not directly. Like, Wren was handled well. I could deal with something like that. But like Anders, no. It's not to say that Abomination Anders was a bad character, I just don't like the way they handled the two minds in one body. And even if they were to do it well, I just think this character would be more appealing on her own. Anyway, speaking of spirits, you know how we've had companions like Cole and Justice that reacted well when we helped people or stopped bad people? Well, what if instead of a benevolent spirit, we could have a malicious demon as a companion? I'd recommend one of greed or something. Like, it can't be actively trying to tempt you or anything, but it would approve when you do something selfish or neglect to help people. Not that I would ever bring them out, ever, but it could be interesting. This is one of a few on the list that I don't particularly want, but still might be cool to see. What I'd rather have is a romanceable, feminine spirit of hope. Against Solas, I think it's extremely important to have a spirit ally, and I think Hope would just be the best choice. Hope is an incredible force, and the idea of an avatar or embodiment thereof is just beautiful. Also, just imagine a romance with any kind of spirit. It would be fascinating.
You make friends with spirits in the Fade, so, are there any that are more than just friends? If you know what I mean.
Oh, really?
Look, it's a natural thing to be curious about.
For a 12-year-old?
It's a simple yes or no question.
Nothing about the Fade or spirits is simple. Especially not that.
So you do have experience in these matters.
I did not say that.
Don't panic. It'll be our little secret.
Ass.
Now who's 12?
Alright, getting close to the end here, guys. I don't have much to say about these last few, but I feel I should still bring them up. So how about this? A sentient darkspawn. One of the architect's awakened disciples. No matter what you chose, at least a few of them still would have survived. I'd love to learn more about them and see how they developed a personality on their own. The problem with this is that they're still darkspawn, so A, I think they would be attacked no questions asked anywhere they went, and B, they would still spread the blight anywhere they go, so you can't exactly just walk around with them wherever you want. Alright. Last one. Either a Chastened or an Adaar. This might be a problem because we'll be a really long way from Ferelden, but then again, there was a Chastened mercenary in Chateau Hain, and some Adaar traders occasionally traveled up north. Or maybe there's even a few clans that settled up there. The main point is, like a lot of people on this list, I just want to learn more about their culture and stuff. The both of them could have super cool stuff to say about how different Tevinter is from their society. One last thing I want to say here is that we could really use just some normal guy from like a Free Marches city or something. Like Varric and Sarah, I think we just need a normal person, if only to remind us that there's an entire world out there, and it isn't just about these master assassins, soldiers, and sorcerers. This is a universe full of people, and having a character like that could keep us grounded in, quote, reality. So there you go, guys, my ideas for the companions in future Dragon Age games. I should note that I don't actually expect any of these except for Scout Harding. These are just some of my ideas, so try not to take these too seriously. Also, even if these aren't in the next game, we can still hold out hope for the game after that. And if you guys have any ideas of your own, then I would love to read about them in the comments, so don't be afraid to share. That's it for now, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, Tela Nadas.